Hey, it's Simmons Chase with synthetic.com. I'm really excited about having Hyung Heon Kim. He's the CEO of Neurobo Pharma to talk about his clinical programs. First, I'd like to say that the contents of this video are not investment advice, and potential investors should do their own due diligence and shouldn't rely on anything said in this video. But before I let Hyung Kim talk, I want to start by setting up the backdrop for his company and what's happening in the very exciting arena of weight loss drugs. Because up until a few years ago, diet and weight loss drugs were really a quiet backwater. There was not a lot going on. There were some drug failures in the past, and no one seemed to have figured it out. But this all got started with GLP-1s, which is a weight loss drug launched by Novo Nordisk in 2015 in the EU. And that was marketed to diabetes patients. Saxenda was the drug name. And the market, obviously, there was reports of a side effect of weight loss in addition to glucose control for this drug. But things really got started in 2020 and 2021 when Novo got FDA approval for Wegovy as a weight loss drug for diabetic patients in the United States. And then Eli received approval in 2022 for Mounjaro for type 2 diabetes, but not for weight loss. And then November 8th, 2023, very recently, the FDA approved tirzepatide or Zepbound for weight loss, which is essentially a higher dose of the original GLP-1s. So what's happened is these GLP-1s that were targeted towards diabetes patients were just grafted onto this enormous TAM. And now the estimates for this class of drugs has grown 6-8-fold, depending on who you talk to. But it's, by some estimates, supposed to be $150 billion by 2030, which would make it a huge class of drugs. Now, the downside to these drugs is not a short list. These drugs aren't free of side effects: pancreatitis, various gastrointestinal disorders, gastroparesis, and I think one of the worst potential problems with GLP-1s is sarcopenic obesity, which is the tendency for GLP-1s to create significant weight loss. But some of that weight loss, about a third of it, is muscle mass, which is the nature of sarcopenic obesity. They're very expensive, not covered by insurance for weight loss. For diabetes, yes, not for weight loss. And then the full bandwagon mode is now in place. I like to use the word bandwagon because this rarely happens in the drug world. But Eli Lilly decided to launch their own direct-to-consumer offering called Lilly Direct for Zepbound. So they're going to be going out with the social media personalities to market this drug directly. So when I found out about Neurobo a couple of months ago, I thought this was ideal because what's needed is the second stage or the second phase of this journey towards scaling up weight loss drugs. And this has to do with dual agonists. And the dual agonists address this problem of side effects. So, Hyung, why don't you talk about your programs, your team? You know, I'm a generalist. I focus on team, TAM, and novelty. And you for sure fit the bill for all three. And your company's journey, I think you had a big pivot a few years ago in the context of the emergence of these diet drugs. So please tell me all about it.
Well, thank you for having me, Simmons. Well, yeah, let me add into what you have just said. I've been so I came up with this idea. I come from Dong IST pharmaceutical company in Korea. It's a part of a larger group of companies called Dong Social uh, Holdings Group, founded in 1932, and I've been the general counsel for the whole group. And I came up with this idea of two metabolic assets that we had. Why don't we send them over to the US and into a listed company? And the whole group of companies, Dong-IST, can use it as a vehicle to push the metabolic assets. Plus, uh, it could be a good starting point to go into the US market. So we came up with the idea. Came over here during COVID, the hype of the COVID. Did a few interviews and met a lot of people. That was like 2021, 22. And when I said we have an asset, it's called DA1726. It's a novel oxytocin analog with GLP-1 receptor and glucagon receptor, and we're targeting this for obesity. And everyone said, obesity? The only way to cure obesity is eat less and work out. That's how you lose weight. You don't need drugs for it. And that was back then. And they were saying, like, some people even told me, like, you're not going to raise any money around obesity drugs because it's not existent. So, but still, we went through with the licensing deal. So, Dong IST provided with two assets, 1241 and 1726. 1241 is a GPR119 agonist, activates natural GLP-1s in the gut, and we're in phase 2A, actively recruiting, and it's targeting MASH. Then the other asset, the A1726, is the GLP-1 receptor, glucagon receptor dual agonist. And Dong IST provided with these two assets as a licensing deal, and they even invested $15 million in the last financing round. So that was all closed up by like end of 2022. Then here comes 23. I started to see a lot of news articles around how people gained a lot of weight during the COVID season. And next thing I know is obesity is such a huge market, and excited to be in this market. It's ever growing every day. We just announced that 1726 phase 1 IND approval from FDA today. Very exciting to move this forward with in human trials. And yes, GLP-1 analogs are the strength of this market at the moment, but next stage will be coming up with different types. I think the next wave will be the dual agonists, as you mentioned. And the biggest side effects will be, to me, is the rebound, the weight rebound, and the muscle loss. So if anyone had lost their weight by reducing food intake, so basically, if you start fasting or something, and you lose a lot of weight if you can maintain it, you always have that problem of rebound. Now, GLP-1 receptors, nausea, the discomforts, and everything associated, those side effects, it makes you not want to eat and make sure that you reduce food intake, and that's how you lose weight. Now, our asset being dual agonist, the glucagon receptor is for energy burn. So what we are trying to do is try to balance between the GLP-1 receptor and the glucagon receptor. That's the biggest concept. So we have a GLP-1 receptor which will reduce the food intake, but With the glucagon, it will burn more energy,
Let me
equaling weight loss.
let me jump in right here because I think this is critical. So just for listeners, if you don't know this this class of drugs, GLP-1 is actually a naturally occurring neurotransmitter. And it's the way the gut signals the brain through the vagus nerve that a satiety, the sensation of satiety. But when the drug companies are dosing patients for weight loss with GLP-1, it elevates this neurotransmitter direct, multifold. So it's more like a hormone, the impact of a hormone on your brain. It goes directly to your brain and impacts pancreas, liver. I mean, this is powerful stuff. And, we talked, I don't know, last month, we had a great call. And you described to me how the dual agonist mode of action is moderating the amount of GLP-1, and that's the nature of fewer side effects and other benefits.
Yes, so exactly. It's just dual agonists have two roles, right? So it's how do you balance it? If you put more weight in your molecule to have more heavier side of the GLP-1, then you'll be seeing a lot more of the side effects from the GLP-1 receptor. While if for us, we feel like we are balanced because at the end of the day, if we want to have a drug that loses weight, you just have to reduce food intake somehow. So we have the GLP-1s, but not as heavy as other competing assets out there. Then we have the glucagon receptor, which burns more energy. And that with that balance, when we looked at the preclinical study on the obese mouse models, um, the mice induced with our drug didn't lose their appetites. They ate a lot more compared to trizepatide. They ate a lot more than semaglutide, meaning uh, their side effects, the GLP-1 receptor side effects, was much less compared to the other assets out there. But still, the glucagon receptors activation had more energy burn. So the mice induced with our drug ate more, but lost similar weight. And we haven't done this, and we will try to see if going through with our future clinical trials, the end goal is that because we control the side effects, because our drug doesn't have that significant reduction in food intake, there will be a lot more better chances of controlling the rebound. Say our preclinical with trizepatide, the mice on high dose of trizepatide, the food intake was reduced by almost 40%, 50%. Now with our 1726 high dose, the food intake was reduced to only 20%. So basically, if you have if somebody, say you eat 3 times a day, but with the drug, you only eat 1.5 meals a day, you're going to lose weight. You're definitely going to lose weight. But once you stop the drug, what's going to happen? Your body is used to eating 3 times a day with similar amount of food, but because of the drug, you have eaten like half of that. The moment you're off the drug, you get your appetite back, then you're going to eat. And that will be resulting in a huge rebound, meaning you're definitely going to gain weight again. But
So
our drug,
let me just describe the economics of this weight loss. This is compelling. So, like I mentioned, these drugs for weight loss alone are not covered by insurance or by the government. So they cost between $1,000 and $1,500 a month.
Yep.
They get results in 12 months. You're going to lose, what is it, 15 or 20% of your body weight.
20,
That's a
yep.
result. The problem is a third of that is muscle mass. So unless you intend to sustain $12,000-15,000 spend a year, you run the real risk of gaining that weight back without the muscle, which leaves you in an impaired metabolic state.
Worse state.
Worse, you're worse off.
Yeah, that's the problem. And the way we see it with our drug is because of reduction in food intake is minimal compared to the other drugs out there. Rebound will be controllable. And if you have an appetite, you're eating like 80% of what you used to, you should have more energy. That results into, has to be in the patient or the subject's willpower. But there is chance of controlling this. So with the future clinical trials, we're going to look at how the rebound works. How do the subjects feel after you stop the drug, and do you still have the energy? How do you feel like if you want to sustain this? It will be much easier for our drug to sustain rather than those massive cuts in food intake. But yes, the health insurance isn't there. But when you think about it, obesity is something to tackle because in the long term, obese patients, especially the severe obese patients, they have all these different metabolic issues, and there's a huge amount of money that needs to be going in. And at the end, controlling the obesity population will definitely benefit everyone on the Medicare side and the insurance side. So at one point, I do believe the insurance will come in. It just depends on which class of obese they'll be covering, but still it will be coming in. But there'll be patients, there'll be subjects, the market will be getting bigger. But people who take or who are investing into obesity drugs with their own money, the more lesser side effects will probably give them a much better results plus better return for the buck.
Well, when it comes time, and I think it definitely will, when the insurance companies pay for it or the government, the federal government ends up paying for the drug for a lot of people, they're much more likely to go with a treatment that triggers a trend of weight loss that can be sustained upon cessation, because you're not going to pay for any drug for the rest of your life. And this is what's really exciting about what your company's doing, because I think that's where this market's going to go. And there are not a lot of drugs in clinical trials that address this.
Yes, that's the goal we have. More sustainable, lesser side effects, and make sure that people have their opportunity to be able to control after the drug is seized.
So tell me, you're Korean, and the main backer of Neurobo is a Korean pharmaceutical company. That is not typical here in the United States, but I think it's very interesting and may set a trend. Why don't you describe that? I've never heard of the company before, but it looks like a lot of people are going to hear about it soon.
Yeah, just as I just mentioned in the start, the Donga Social Group was formed in 1932, so that's over 90 years. They've been in Korea, but mostly focused in domestic market, but they do everything, starting from like prescription drugs, over the counter, energy drinks, logistics, manufacturing. You can name it all. They even do biosimilars. In it, now they've been still inside of Korea, right? So as general counsel before, I've been working on a lot of different projects where Donga can go outside of Korea, go into new markets, maybe developed markets or developing markets, and try to expand. And it wasn't really easy. So figured using a NASDAQ listed shell and providing with the cash to develop, providing with the assets, the metabolic assets to develop, it will give a good boost to the group of companies in Korea to come into the US market and get a little more street credit, as you put it.
So before we wrap up, why don't you tell me about the readouts you have slated? I know you're in phase 1 now. Your NDA was approved, and you're in phase 2 for the NASH drug. So we should be getting data like this year and next, right?
Well, for starting with the most advanced, DA1241, with the indication for MASH, we have phase 2A actively recruiting. It's in part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is monotherapy, and part 2 is with the combination with sitagliptin. That asset, as a monotherapy, activates natural GLP-1s, while in combination with a DPP-4, GPR119 will activate the natural GLP-1s, while DPP-4 will prolong the activity of the natural GLP-1. So it's a very good combo therapy. We believe the results will be, hopefully, will be really good. And we're looking at data readout by end of this year. And that's going into the very competitive MASH indication, right? But we believe, and I believe, that our asset is more focused on controlling the inflammation, which is a little different than other assets out there. And that will be providing a good edge where we could find another combo. Say now we're doing a DPP-4, but we can even think about the GLP-1. And those combination therapies will be able to go into the stage 3 and stage 4 of MASH. So that's our goal on that. 1726, yes, we did get the blessing from the agency today. We're looking at first patient in the SAD study during the first half of this year. We have the MAD study coming up in the second half of this year, and we'll be looking at top-line results coming from those two next year. And it is a little longer phase 1 compared to other phase 1 studies. It's because of, well, we discussed this, right? Well-known side effects of the GLP-1 receptor. And the agency was very giving us a lot of guidance on where we should be careful with, what kind of things, processes we should have in there, just because of those known side effects of GLP-1.
That's right. Yep. Okay, so maybe we should catch up this time next year and hopefully share some more great news.
Well, that sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.